Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something absolutely crucial. We're taking a completely science-backed look at the biological mechanics of motivation, like literally the biological truth behind why we actually succeed or fail at our goals. It's fascinating stuff, so let's just jump right in.
Okay, so would you starve to death with food literally sitting right in front of you? It sounds completely absurd, right? But let me tell you about this famous experiment that just brilliantly illustrates the actual engine of motivation inside your brain. So, scientists took a group of mice and they artificially depleted their brain's dopamine levels. Then, they put food just 15 centimeters away from them. The mice could smell it, they could clearly see it. And get this, if the food was placed directly into their mouths, they'd happily chew and eat it. But when it was just those 15 centimeters away, they didn't move. They literally lacked the physical, biological drive to just walk a few steps to get their food, and they starved to death. Crazy, right? And that whole crazy scenario brings us to a really crucial distinction: having desire versus having dopamine. You know, society loves to feed us this myth, right? Oh, if you just want it bad enough, you'll achieve it. But science tells a completely different story. Psychological desire, just wanting something, is basically useless without the biological engine of dopamine. Dopamine is the chemical that gives literally every creature, from birds to fish to us humans, the actual physical energy to move, to hunt, to seek out mates, and just survive. You can want to learn a new language or, start a business all you want, but without dopamine, you're kind of just like those mice staring at the food.
So the big question is, how does this engine actually run? Well, think about this. Have you ever achieved a massive goal? Like you finally got that promotion, graduated, or won a big game, and instead of feeling on top of the world for days, you suddenly just felt kind of empty? Well, that is the mechanics of motivation at play. See, when you achieve a goal, your brain gets this massive spike in dopamine. But the second you get that reward, your dopamine doesn't just neatly return to normal. No, it crashes sharply, dropping way below your natural baseline. And the higher the peak of joy, the deeper the crash afterward. So that empty feeling? That's literally your brain sitting in a state of dopamine deficit, just waiting for its resources to replenish.
To really get why this happens, we kind of have to look at the cellular level for a second. So let's define something super important. Your brain cells, your neurons, they produce dopamine and release it. But for that dopamine to actually make you feel motivated, it has to be received by the next neuron. Think of these dopamine receptors as tiny cellular doors. These doors must physically open to let the dopamine inside. If those doors are locked, or worse, destroyed, it honestly doesn't matter how much dopamine is floating around in your head, you won't feel even a drop of motivation.
Now, here's where it gets a bit dark, especially when we look at modern life. You see, nature designed our bodies to seek balance, what scientists call homeostasis. Like if your temperature goes up, you sweat to bring it back down. Simple, right? Well, the exact same rule applies to dopamine. When we absolutely flood our brains with huge artificial spikes of dopamine, we're talking casinos, non-stop scrolling on social media, junk food, alcohol, the brain actually panics. It senses this extreme imbalance. So to protect itself, it starts shutting down and literally killing off those dopamine receptors, those cellular doors we just talked about. And over time, you end up needing more and more extreme stimulation just to feel normal, which leaves your baseline energy just perpetually drained.
But, and this is a big but, it's not just the obvious vices causing this burnout. We often don't realize that even quote-unquote good goals can completely destroy your motivation. Let's say you're purely goal-oriented. You only care about getting that A+ grade, or winning the gold medal, or landing the big promotion. This is a super common trap for high achievers. Because if your brain is wired to only release dopamine when you finally cross that finish line, well, what happens during the weeks, or months, or literally years of hard work it takes to get there? You feel completely empty. The process itself becomes miserable because you're literally starved of dopamine during the actual journey.
And that perfectly illustrates why external rewards are so incredibly dangerous. Check out this fascinating kindergarten experiment. Researchers found kids who just naturally love to draw. They split them into two groups. The first group was told, hey, you're going to get external rewards like shiny stars or toys for your drawings. The second group, they were told nothing. No rewards, just draw for fun. Well, over time, the kids expecting rewards started drawing less and less. And when the rewards finally stopped, they lost all motivation to draw entirely. The external reward completely hijacked their dopamine system. But the unrewarded kids, they just kept right on drawing with the exact same enthusiasm.
Which builds into an even more powerful concept. Think about this puzzle experiment they did with kids of equal skill levels. Group 1 was praised for their identity. Wow, you solved it. You are so smart. Group 2 was praised for their process. Wow, you worked so hard and tried different strategies. Great effort. When the puzzles got significantly harder, the results were just staggering. The smart kids, they gave up early because they were absolutely terrified of losing their smart identity. They even lied to inflate their scores. But the kids praised for effort? They completely dug in, worked harder, scored higher, and were totally honest about their results. It's wild. So what's the ultimate takeaway from all this? Basically, you have to rewire your brain to find dopamine in the effort itself. Look, a lot of us weren't raised in an environment that praised the attempt over the end result. But the beautiful thing is, today, right now, you can be the parent to your own brain. When you're doing something really difficult, you literally have to consciously stop and tell yourself, wow, I really don't want to do this, but I'm doing it anyway. Good job. By praising the process, you're tricking your brain into treating the attempt itself as the reward, and that gives you a nice steady drip of dopamine to keep you going.
Okay, so how do we practically apply this when we're trying to build a new, healthy habit? I want you to remember this specific number, 30. This is the 30-minute micro-detox rule, and it's a super actionable biological hack for your daily life.
Let's map out exactly why those 30 minutes are so absolutely critical. If you're sitting on your couch consuming high dopamine media, let's say scrolling through a bunch of short-form videos or watching an intense movie, your dopamine levels are artificially sky high. The exact moment you stop, your dopamine crashes hard. If you try to stand up and immediately read a book or go for a run, activities that actually require effort and have a much lower, slower dopamine release, your brain is going to scream at you. It'll feel biologically impossible because you are deep in a dopamine deficit. So you absolutely must abstain from high dopamine activities for 30 minutes before you attempt your new habit. You have to give your brain chemistry time to stabilize.
Now, if you want to take this to the next level and really repair your motivation engine, you've got to try the 2-week macro detox challenge. This is where you identify the one specific activity that gives you the biggest unnatural dopamine hit, your biggest crutch. In the source material for today's explainer, the author actually notes their own crutch. They'd play mobile chess the exact second they felt stressed. Whatever it happens to be for you, social media, junk food, video games, you eliminate it entirely for 2 straight weeks. I know, it's really difficult, but it gives your brain that desperately needed time to unshutter those dopamine receptors and literally heal your biological doors. And I really want you to internalize this paradigm shift, okay? Every interval you don't repeat the bad habit isn't a failure, it's a brain detox. Breaking habits is incredibly painful. Most of us try, we relapse, and then we just hate ourselves for it. But we need a massive change in perspective here. Listen, even if you only managed to quit your bad habit for 2 days before slipping up, those 2 days were absolutely not a failure. They were highly successful mini-detox that actively healed your brain's receptors. Reframing the struggle this way, it gives you the actual motivation to try again and again. Okay, so if we're cutting out all these artificial highs, how on earth do we get energy? Well, let's compare some natural dopamine spikes. So we've got our baseline sitting at 0. Activities like sex raise dopamine by about 100%. Pretty significant. But then, consider a truly cold, shock-inducing shower. That spikes your dopamine by a massive 250%. No way, right? And the crazy part is, unlike the sudden crash you get from a casino or doom scrolling, the elevated dopamine from a cold shower actually sustains itself for up to 3 hours. It's just an incredible, entirely natural way to flood your system with energy without damaging your receptors. But hey, cold showers aren't the only way. Here's a rapid-fire list of healthy, natural dopamine boosters you can easily incorporate every day. Getting just 10 to 20 minutes of actual morning sunlight directly into your eyes totally sets your natural rhythms. For coffee or tea, try to wait at least 40 minutes after waking up so you don't shock your system right away. There's even this type of velvet being called mucuna pruriens that naturally boosts dopamine precursors. Oh, and never underestimate the biological power of a really genuine hug, putting on your favorite music, or just taking a simple walk out in nature. These activities elevate your mood cleanly, safely, and naturally.
Which brings us to a final, really vital question I want you to ask yourself today. Are you chasing the reward, or are you mastering the attempt? You see, true, lasting motivation isn't about just white-knuckling your way to the finish line while your poor brain starves. It's about protecting your receptors, doing those detoxes, and really training yourself to find deep biological satisfaction in the simple act of trying. Of course, dopamine is just one piece of this giant puzzle. True mental health absolutely requires balancing other hormones like serotonin as well, which is honestly a whole other fascinating topic for another time. But for now, start praising your effort and just watch your motivation completely transform.